Yeah, that way I can get the post ready, and then I'll let them know we're starting at 11:45. Yeah, honestly, like I like it when you take the lead on this stuff. You're much better. You're much better at that than I am.
My job is
I'm much
public
better at
speaking.
yeah. Well, hey, I got awards for public speaking, baby. But I'm much better at yelling angrily at things.
That's true.
That is my niche. Is people. It's so weird. I can't like I can't tell if I just am coming off too much like an asshole or what because everyone's just like, oh, I want to hear Waleed yell. I'm like, why is that my personality now? And then Velus Jones fumbles, and then I get why
Man, he
because
Self-loathing because you thought he was good.
I didn't think he was good. I was like, at least Fields had a say in it. Like, I don't make judgments until I see them play.
Yep.
I try to like, yeah. Oh no, everyone does. I'm a wait and see guy. And then I was like, I'm not going to worry about this Bears offensive line until week 1. And then week 1 happened. And I'm like, I'm fucking worried about the Bears offensive line.
Speaking of week 1, I think we're live.
Are we live? Oh, we're live. Hi guys. That's just that classic Waleed yelling you guys all seem to want to hear.
Intro the show, my man. Yell about it.
Hey, guys, we are going back to Gambletown. Technically, the Democratic People's Republic of Gambletown because my man Tony Martin won his Millionaire Challenge. What's your streak at right now?
Going back to last season, it's 4 games.
4 games in a row. All right. Brandon, I don't think you're familiar with the Millionaire Challenge, but this is a
Yeah, I lost. I think the one I put in last year.
Well, the concept for it is basically like what you do is you make your bet. This is your bet that you think is going to win, and then if you do win, you don't get to take your money out. You have to just double down the entire time because if you do that, like with normal odds, 16 weeks in a row, you'll be a millionaire with a $10 bet.
So let's do a quick recap of last week before we hop into it. We all went 3-2 in our 5 bets of the week.
2 and 3.
We all went close enough. We all went 2 and 3. Our hits were good. Our misses were bad. I don't want to walk through each for brevity's sake. Millionaire bet. I'm the only one that won. Waleed's Drake London over did not hit. Ryan's Christian Kirk anytime touchdown did not hit. Same game parlays. Waleed, you went 2 of 3. Unfortunately, Anthony Richardson couldn't turn the ball over for you.
No, Anthony Richardson did. It was C.J. Stroud. I saw him throw in triple coverage like 3 times that game, and not one of those goddamn Ravens cornerbacks could turn it over.
Did you hit your same game parlay, or was it the Olave touchdown?
No, the Olave touchdown killed me. I was close on all of my parlays this week. I was always one leg that fucked me.
Okay, I also went 2 of 3 on both of my I got 2 of 3 and then 3 of 4. Minnesota really kind of did me in. Ryan's 5-leg parlay busted with Minnesota as well. Also Seattle. His same game parlay lost on a Christian Kirk anytime touchdown. So week 1, not great, but I think that's kind of what you expect in week 1, right?
Yeah, I guess. But what I also expect is I expect to get data, and I got some really good data. I'm excited for this week. I feel as good as I've ever felt about betting, which is usually a bad sign.
I agree. So,
producer note, guys. Instead of Ryan this week, we have Brandon Andreessen.
Oh yeah!
Shout out!
Shout
out to Brandon.
Well, we got Brandon Andreessen of the Fancy Boys Club. This guy's working on an article. So there was a stat that came out after the Thursday night game. Justin Jefferson, at the age of 24, has more receiving yards than any receiver in Bears history. Which Brandon and I shared that tweet with Brandon, and we were talking about it. And he's got an article that's going to be coming up. Brandon, I'll let you go from here.
So I decided to look at, because if you're a Bears fan like I am, you feel a certain sense of hatred and loathing towards people who were born for and live vicariously through the Bears' 1985 Super Bowl run. And so for a lot of us geriatric millennials like myself, we weren't really alive and or have no memories of it. I want to look at who the best Bears wide receiver of our lifetime was that we would actually remember. So I put the barometer from 1990 on till now. So I looked at 32 years. I didn't include Tyler Scott. I looked at 32 years of data going from 1990 on through today of who the best Bears wide receiver of all time that they actually drafted was. And spoiler alert, it is one of the most bleak things I've ever written, and I make my bones writing obituaries about drug-addled wrestlers. So that really says something about just the barren landscape of the quality of wide receiver they have drafted over the past 3+ decades.
All right, and you can see that at the Fancy Boys Club. So
Monday
you guys
morning,
got to check
10
that
a.m.
article.
goes live.
All right.
All right.
But let's this is a day of hope. Let's not worry about Bears receivers. Let's look at the first game of the week. Packers versus the Falcons. You want to do the breakdown?
Let's start it off. Atlanta, 1.5-point home favorites. A Green Bay money line is plus 114, and the over/under is 40.5. Brandon, you have anything you like in this game?
Yes, because I am a sadist. We're going on the Falcons game, correct?
Yeah,
Correct.
Falcons Packers.
Yeah. I will die on the cross saying that Kyle Pitts is good, no matter how much evidence points in the other direction.
Well, to be fair, Kyle Pitts is
fair.
good. The question is whether Arthur Smith is good. Or Desmond Ridder.
Whether Arthur Smith is good. I think it's more whether Arthur Smith has an irrational hatred of the forward pass is the bigger issue.
That's also true. I have the Falcons negative 20% pass rate over expected in week 1.
I mean, I'll tell you what, like, I'm not doubling down on Drake London, even though I love me some Drake London. And I won't do it because Jair Alexander exists. So that's why, like, I'm actually, like, I was looking at the Drake London under for that reason. Because, I mean, DJ Moore got shut down, and Drake London's probably better than him. So, although I don't know that DJ Moore got shut down so much as by Jair Alexander, so much as he got shut down by Luke Getsy. So,
correct.
Yeah, here's the issue with the Packers defense. We have no idea if they're actually any good or not because the Bears showed their asses so hard in week 1 against Green Bay. Green Bay was able to just basically play a very general defense where they occasionally blitzed and threw the Bears so far off their game it was over late in the first quarter. So we don't know if a competently coached team like Atlanta is going to have a defense for that. A team that can run the ball like Atlanta can keep the Packers defense from blitzing, which should open up a little bit. Even although you are right with Jair Alexander, it does provide the opportunity to shut Drake London down. It should open up other avenues on offense, which is why I'm going to live and die by Kyle Pitts, and I am going to take the 20 plus 2,400 bet. Kyle Pitts 2 touchdown passes on Sunday.
That is commitment to your belief.
I mean,
But
Kyle Pitts is definitely going to have 80% of the target share. It's just going to be out of 4 targets. So
is he? Is he? You know, funny you should mention that because I don't think he is going to get that target share. I'm going to go into. I have one bet in this game. I actually got a $25 free bet. This is probably my favorite bet of the week, and that is Bijan Robinson over 18.5 receiving yards. So I'm going to throw some numbers at you guys. Bijan ran a route 77.3% of Atlanta's dropbacks. Granted, not that many, but still a 77% route share. He ran a route 20 times. That ranks 10th among all running backs. No, it ranked more than 10th. That number has to be wrong. It ranked his target share was 30% per route run. And it's only 18.5. Bijan's going to get the ball thrown to him. They're using Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson on the field at the same time a lot. So I am 100%. I think this is one of the smash bets of the week. Bijan 18.5. The over on receiving. I think. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention: the Packers gave up the second most receiving yards to running backs last week. So
I like that bet. The only reason why I'm not tailing you on that bet is I worry about Cordero Patterson's involvement since he's coming back this week.
Literally just looked it up, and Cordell Patterson is plus 390 to score a touchdown this week, and you know they're going to give him every chance in the world to do that.
I mean, that's fine. You guys can believe in Cordell Patterson. They spent the top 10 pick on Bijan. He was on the field a ton in week 1. You don't go in the top 10 to not get usage. Maybe his usage won't be as high as it was in week 1, but that's one catch for Bijan.
Well, before we move on to the next game, I want to ask you guys one question. Can you guess what last week Desmond Ritter's average depth of target was? Lowest in the league.
I'm going to guess 5 yards. 5 yards.
Brandon was close. It was 3.2 yards.
Good God. That favors Bijan. That favors Bijan to me.
All right.
Some Craig Krenzel-ish numbers right there.
We're talking Shane Matthews here. So let's go next up. We've got the Bears going to Tampa Bay. This line was very heavy Chicago before the season started, yet here we are. Tampa Bay are 2.5-point favorites at home. A Bears upsets plus 128 on the money line. And the total point line is 40.5. Waleed, start us off.
All right, so I had a couple thoughts on this game. This is one of my top 5. Bijan was one of my top 5 bets of the week. This is another one of my top 5 bets of the week. That's Chris Godwin over 57.5 receiving yards. Hopefully that line hasn't changed because I think it was 56.5 and then it went up a little bit. No, Chris Godwin, 57.5 receiving yards. I want to point out that the Bears put their nickel cornerback on IR, Kyler Gordon. I believe his backup is also hurt. On top of that, the Chris Godwin, let me see. Hold on, I got to pull up the number here. He ran 45.2% of his routes he ran from the slots. So 57.5 yards, and considering that the Bears gave up, what did they give up? They were top 10 in passing yards that they gave up. So Chris Godwin feels like his pass
yards. They only gave up 92 receiving yards, but they gave up 2 touchdowns. So their fantasy point stuff was rocked.
Interesting. I thought they gave up a ton of receiving yards, but maybe passing yards. But maybe I'm wrong here.
Well, most of their passing yards they gave up were to Aaron Jones.
That's true. But they still gave up 245 yards passing. So all I'm hoping for is that he gets a 20% receiving share of that. Okay. And I think considering the secondary is hurt, the Bears have 0 pass rush. I think Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin are all really good plays, but I'm going with Chris Godwin. And what's really funny is Tony and I at the beginning of the week had opposite thoughts on this, and then we both flipped to the other guy's position.
Yep. All right, Brandon, got anything in this game?
Yeah, I do. I like an alternate spread. Buccaneers minus 9.5 at plus 255. The reason for this is we all have a pretty good idea that the Bears defense can't generate a pass rush. The only thing that can really shake that pass rush the only thing that can really shake it up is more blitzing. Matt Eberflus has said often that he doesn't like to blitz. He wants all of his pressure coming from the front 4. So they're probably not going to give added pressure to Baker Mayfield. The only way you're going to beat Baker Mayfield is if you put pressure on him. He's shown that he not handle pressure. He's shown that since the moment he came to the NFL. The Bears defense cannot put enough pressure on him. He's going to be living in that pocket, waiting for Godwin and Evans to come open. The Bears offense, I do not trust to put enough points on the board to keep up. I don't trust or like Matt Eberflus as a coach. And now that he's going to be calling plays on defense, I think we're going to show our full ass this week. And, I really like Buccaneers minus 9.5.
If you watch the Bears long enough, you just start, actively hate betting against the Bears, hoping to at least make some money back from, all the pain they've caused you. That's what I learned from this right now, Brandon.
Essentially, yeah.
So,
I want to point out, though, real quick, because there is one bet I didn't mention. 40.5, that over, I feel because the Bucs also gave up a ton of passing yards, and I think the fact that both teams showed that you can pass on them means that 40.5, I feel like that over is a pretty safe play. Even if the Bucs come screaming out ahead, which is a very likely possibility. The Bears sucked last week, but they put up 20 points in garbage time. So I think that over is I think that line is adjusted way too low, and that's something that can be exploited.
Okay. You're right, Waleed. You alluded to this earlier. We flip-flopped on which Tampa Bay receiver we think is going to ruin our Sunday. And I originally went with Godwin, but I switched to Mike Evans, a player who I was not high on this year. And I think the reason why is because I found this interesting stat that Mike Evans had a 32% target rate on Baker Mayfield passes that were charted as no pressure. Now, as we watched last week, the Bears got no pressure. So I think this bodes well for Mike Evans. Also, the fantasy.
You mean
points
East Coast
Bears-
Tyler Lockett? I think Tony.
I accept that.
That's a fair assessment.
For fantasy purposes, the Bears gave up 21.8 half PPR points to receivers lined up out wide last week, and only 2.5 fantasy points to wide receivers lined up in the slot. Mike Evans is out wide 83% of the time. I think this is a Mike Evans week, and that's why one of my top 5 bets of the week is his over at 53.5 rushing yards.
And truth be told, I think they're both good.
I think the other thing to look at is the possibility that after last week of DJ Moore only getting 2 targets, they overcompensate and try to throw to him much more, which actually makes an interesting ladder bet if you want to go with him. If you want to bet him at 40-plus yards, 50-plus yards, 60-plus yards, and 70-plus yards, you make 4 individual bets on that and try and run up the ladder. You get 40 to 50, you've paid off all your bets. If you get to 60, you start turning a profit on the bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of wide. I call that you said a ladder bet. I call those wide receiver stacks. I love doing it. I actually have 2 that I plan on this week, and we're gonna get to that fairly soon.
All right, let's find something a little less depressing here. We've got Detroit going to Seattle, game that seems to be a shootout every year. Detroit are 4.5-point home favorites. The money line for a Seahawks upset is plus 180, and our total points are 47.5. Brandon, take it away.
So, as you said, this tends to be a shootout. The Seattle's already banged up. No team has suffered more injuries from their final preseason game through week 1. So there's a definite possibility that Jared Goff is really going to put up some massive fantasy numbers, if nothing else. Yep. He's right now sitting at plus 126 to throw 275. I think feels like a real safe bet right now because Seattle last week didn't really prove that they could stop anybody through the air. I love that, and I'm going to try and pull up the number real quick. I want to see what the under or the alternate over is in terms of total points here, because I kind of love a combined over in the 65 range, plus 64.5. You get plus 630 over 64.5 total points. That's a very tempting number for me because as good as the Detroit Lions pass rush is, their cornerbacks did not really show up and show out last week either. Think, as you guys noted, there is a real potential for some heavy point scoring in this one. This could very well end up being a 41-35 game.
Okay,
I'm 100% with you on that. When we were talking about wide receiver stacks, this is one of my wide receiver stacks. I'm on Ross St. Brown. One of my top 5 bets of the week, I'm on Ross St. Brown at over 74.5. I do like the Goff passing over, too, in this game. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm with you. My millionaire bet of the week this is my favorite. This is a game special here, and it's very simple. It is Aiden Hutchinson to record a sack and the Detroit Lions to win at plus 170. I mean, we saw it. Aiden Hutchinson. Hold on. Did you see that? Juwan Taylor just had another false start that isn't getting called. That's what just happened. Both tackles of the Seahawks hurts. Aiden Hutchinson is going to get a sack. I think he might get multiple. If I could find a line to get like 2+ sacks with Aiden Hutchinson, I'm going to bet it because I feel like he's going to have a monster game. Also, I'm biased on Hutchinson. I got a bet preseason that he's going to be Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's going to be a monster. So I like that bet, but I also like a wide receiver stack with Amon-Ra St. Brown because we saw what Puka Nacua did last week, over 100 yards. And that's all out of the slot. That's where they're going to be running Amon-Ra St. Brown from. He's going to destroy that Seattle secondary. I think this is going to be a real fun game to bet.
I feel like there's a potential here, though, that the game script kind of betrayed you guys a little bit because with the offensive line being decimated, like I feel like there's a chance that Detroit just goes up big and it turns into a running game.
But here's the thing you have to remember. I think Detroit wants to destroy Seattle. Like, they've been talking about it all week. Like, they are playing with hate in their hearts. They're playing angry, and I don't know if Seattle's going to come out of there with any kneecaps.
I'm glad that you Josh, that you mentioned the possibility of Detroit jumping out to a big lead and then trying to ice it on the ground, because I think that you can feed Amon-Ra in the first half, and then that leans towards my one of my top 5 bets of the week, which is David Montgomery going over 55.5 rushing yards.
Oh yeah.
Seattle, instead of taking Jalen Carter, decided to go defensive back again, and I don't know if you guys know, but Seattle's pretty bad at stopping the run. They had a guy named Kyron Williams crush it last week.
Yeah.
So I'm big on Monty this week, and that's why one of my top 5 bets of the week is David Montgomery. Lions had one of the best the best run blocking weeks of the season last week, so I expect that to continue on.
I also think it's worth noting Ryan had David Montgomery anytime touchdown as one of his top 5 bets of the week for this week. He also had Fields over rushing over, but I forgot to say that when we were in the segment.
And he's got one of his top 5 bets of the week is Sam Laporta going over 33.5 receiving yards.
That's true.
So,
which also, and that's a good one too, because Seattle gave up a ton of receiving yards to the tight end in week 1. They also were bad against tight ends 2022. So Laporta might be a really sneaky good like DFS play.
Okay.
Actually, he's someone I was going to bring up in our DFS talk as someone I am spreading around a little bit this week, putting Goff and Laporta together.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a definite
alert.
And that's what you need, right? So we're going to go with the Raiders visiting the Bills. The Bills are 8.5-point home favorites. Raiders upsets plus 315 on the money line, and the line itself is 47 even. Waleed, go ahead, start us off.
So I don't have too much in this game, but the one bet that I thought looked interesting to me, that line went up too. When I was looking at it yesterday, it was 69.5 for Josh Jacobs rushing over. I mean, Breece Hall destroyed the Buffalo run defense in week 1. I feel like they're going to try to run the ball down their throats with Josh Jacobs. It's now 70.5. It's not one of my top 5 bets, but it's a bet that I looked at, and it is worth noting. But this isn't a game I have that much interest in, if I'm being honest.
Okay. Brandon, go ahead.
Actually, I'm exactly in the same boat as Waleed. You look at a lot of bets on this one, and it doesn't look like a lot of the sports books there's not a lot of give in anything, because I don't think they have a good read on any of these teams. I don't think the Bills are as bad as they looked in week 1, and the Raiders probably aren't as good as they looked in week 1. The only thing I might look at is Dalton Kincaid plus 40 receiving yards at plus 172. I've grown very accustomed to using Dawson Knox as that one guy you can always rely on to pick up off the waiver wires in a fantasy bye week. But Josh Allen was throwing to Kincaid more, which is, shocking. Rookie tight ends don't tend to see as much play. But Josh Allen obviously has a certain amount of faith in going into his intermediate routes with Kincaid out there, especially in situations where Diggs is covered. He didn't show an overwhelming willingness in week 1 to throw to Gabriel Davis, who I think is someone that a lot of us thought was going to have a bounce back year, but didn't necessarily show it too hard last week. So I need to see some willingness in Gabriel Davis before I start betting his way. So I kind of do like Dalton Kincaid plus 40. Might sprinkle a little bit on that one. Or plus 40 receiving yards. Might sprinkle a little bit on that one, but not going heavy too hard with anything on this one.
And one thing I do want to point out too is one thing that Jets defense is legit. They're a top 5 NFL defense. I mean, we saw that week 1. So I'm willing to give like Buffalo a little bit of a pass for how bad they look. But I need to see how they look against a Raiders team that their defense is based on 20 years of Raiders history, this defense is going to suck. So if Buffalo doesn't ball out, I'm going to start being a little bit more nervous.
And I think I can tie in with both of you guys here. Like, if Gabe Davis is going to have a bounce back season, it's going to start this week.
Yep.
Vegas has real bad corners. Their corners are so bad they made Cortland Sutton look competent last week. Like, the 2 outside cornerbacks in the Vegas backfield allowed 10.5 yards per coverage snap on all targets 15 or more yards downfield last week.
Ooh, that does scream a Gabe Davis week, and
it sure does. So this if you're feeling frisky, a Gabe Davis prop might be interesting, but at the same time, like, with Gabe Davis, you're either going to be mad that you didn't bet him up to 90 or more yards receiving, or he's going to get 17 yards on 2 catches.
Yep.
All right.
Also, I want to point out, Ryan had, for one of his bets of the week, he does have the Josh Allen rushing over at 37.5. And I think that's a solid play because Josh Allen will run the ball.
Find somebody that loves you the way Ryan loves betting quarterback rushes. That's his thing. All right.
That is 100% it.
So let's move on to a game that I think a lot of us are super excited for.
Yes.
We're going to have the Chargers visiting Tennessee. Chargers are 2.5-point road favorites. A Tennessee home win is plus 126 on the money line, and the point total is 45.5. Brandon, what do you got?
It's my time. I've been a Josh Kelly true believer since the moment he came in the league.
I drafted him in DFS off of your recommendation because I don't watch
it was probably a horrible idea. But with Austin Eckler out, I think Josh Kelly does get a lot of the bulk of the carries here, and the sportsbooks seem to believe that as well because his alt rushing yards right now, you're only getting minus 114 to get him at 50 or more rushing yards. Really depends on how you feel about Tennessee's defense, to be honest. I still think there is some quality on that defense. I know it's been dismantled a little bit. I'm going to take the more safe bet and take him at plus 50 yards at minus 114. Might parlay that into an anytime touchdown with Josh Kelly, which will get you pretty strong odds because I have an entire another bet involved in there. So that's not going to work. But it's at plus 110 for him to score a touchdown, minus 114 for him to get over 50 rushing yards. I do like that. There's also a definite possibility we could see this could be a very good early Quentin Johnson game. I'm a bigger believer in Quentin Johnson early on than a lot of people are, mostly because I've been burned by Mike Williams and Keenan Allen for so many years on them getting injured and losing bets that way. So I'm ready, I'm willing, I'm with an open heart and an open mind, I'm willing to bring in and love any Chargers wide receiver who can stay healthy and maybe get some yards and a touchdown. So I'm looking at possibility of Quentin Johnson, especially if this game ends up closer than we think going later into the game because Tennessee's able to lock down Keenan Allen.
Okay. Waleed?
So this game, I love Justin Herbert over 286.5. It's not one of my top 5 bets, but it's a bet that I'm looking at. I'm also big on Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, those receiving overs. Last week, I mean, the Titans gave up the 4th most passing yards to quarterbacks. From a receiver standpoint, they gave up the 2nd most receiving yards. They gave up 262 receiving yards to the wide receiver position. So I want to invest in Keenan Allen. I want to invest in Mike Williams in those overs because I think that the Chargers, I think we know Kellen Moore wants to throw the ball and throw it downfield for big plays. So I think the Titans, man, Ryan Tannehill looked washed. I was eyeing this over a little bit because 45.5 feels kind of low for 2 teams that gave up a lot of passing yards. But man, I don't know that Tannehill could take advantage of that. He looked bad.
Got anything else?
No, I just want those receiving yards.
Early warning alert: if Tyjae Spears is available in your fantasy leagues, get him now before it's too late because he was on the field for a lot of the passing downs last week, and definitely is already the 3rd down back. He's going to get massive play if and when Derrick Henry gets injured this year.
He outsnapped Henry in week 1.
I feel like that was a little bit of a mistake though too because Henry was getting some receiving looks. I actually think I was actually looking at the Derrick Henry receiving over too at 14.5 because I think that's the line that Henry can hit. So the Titans, the Chargers gave up a lot of receiving yards to running backs too. So that Derrick Henry 14.5 receiving over is an interesting play. It's a low line. He's been getting more passing looks, but at the same time, I don't know that I like it enough to place an actual bet on it. But it's something I'm eyeing.
All right. Chargers gave up 47 receiving yards to running backs last week.
Yeah, that's a lot.
The newest episode of the podcast that we recorded last night, my cheap DFS stash play of the week is Tyjae Spears. because I think game script means that he will once again outsnap Derrick Henry this week. Whether or not that translates into fantasy production is yet to be seen, but having watched that game last week, he is the 2-minute drill, long passing down, and garbage time guy. So that's their opportunity. Ryan Tannehill's arm being a wet sack of shit means that he's probably not going to be throwing it deep, which is where the Chargers got smoked last week. However, my millionaire bet of the week this week is the Chargers minus 2.5. So I'm at $19 after winning last week, and winning again this week would put me at $35. So keep the train moving.
Fantasy question for you guys for this game, and then we'll move on to the other game. Josh Kelly or Najee Harris to start this week?
Josh Kelly.
Kelly, but I am not a Najee Harris believer, and I really never have been.
I am a Najee believer, and I'm still going Josh Kelly.
Yeah, I'm going with Josh Kelly just because of the Eckler injury. I think there's too much opportunity there.
Okay.
I also think that I watched that game too, and Cincinnati had some shit play calling, but that Cleveland defense is fucking real.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett should be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year just based on how much he took over that entire game last week. And I do want to say, if I can just flex real quick, I did a shitload of underdog best ball drafts this offseason, and Josh Kelly was my guy. I have him in 59% of all of my best ball leagues. So I'm all in.
Nice.
All right, let's move on. We're going Cincinnati at home against Baltimore. Cincinnati are 3-point home favorites. A Baltimore road win would be plus 138 on the money line, and the point total is 46.5. Waleed.
I mean, my final top 5 bet of the week, absolutely love this. It is Jamar Chase over 79.5 receiving yards. Like, I get it. Burrow sucked week 1, but he was playing in a hurricane, so it's kind of hard to really hold it against him. This is also my second wide receiver stack. I think Jamar Chase is going to go off.
Okay.
I also like T. Higgins receiving over on this game. I like Joe Burrow's passing over. What was the stat I was going to pull up here when it came to receiving yards? Let's see. We got 2 cornerbacks injured on the Baltimore Ravens, and we also have they gave up the 5th most receiving yards to wide receivers in week 1. But those receivers were Nico Collins, Robert Woods, and Tank Dell. I mean, now they're going to see like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd. I think the Ravens are going to get smoked on defense.
I don't disagree.
I also kind of think that 46.5 the over on that game because it's going to be a lot of scoring.
Brandon, what do you think? Got anything in this one?
So I'm kind of back and forth on Mark Andrews expected to be back this week. We had a big week last week in his first game out of Zay Flowers. Obviously, I really like the connection that Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers had. But with Andrews coming back, we all know Mark Andrews is Jackson's safety valve. Even in a new offense, I believe in that as well.
Yep.
Mark Andrews plus 50 receiving yards is at minus 132 right now. And Zay Flowers, 40 plus receiving yards at minus 136. I'm half tempted to put money on both of them because I do think that Cincinnati is going to focus on trying to keep Lamar Jackson from running, or at least not keep him from running, at least try to minimize the damage, which should open up some one-on-one coverage on the outside for Flowers, and it should open up some intermediate passing for Andrews. I kind of like both of those plays.
Okay. I had some stuff from the episode we recorded last night. Shane, one of our co-hosts, brought up that Flowers had insane 47% target share last week.
Yep.
But of his 9 catches, 7 of them were specifically schemed towards him. So he only had 2 catches where he wasn't the focus of that play. So I wonder with Andrews coming back, if the yardage is a harder sell than the line for total receptions, which is 3.5. I feel like that's an easier hit, but also you're getting rocked on the odds at minus 166.
Oh.
And I
also with Andrews coming back, who knows how many of those schemes would actually go towards Andrews instead
correct.
of yeah.
Cincinnati also gave up the first most fantasy points last week to all tight ends lined up in line. So the Flowers receiving yards I think is risky, but this game, like Brandon, you were just talking about the opportunity for the Lions Seahawks game to be the barn burner of the week. There's an outside chance it's this game.
Yeah, which is why I like that over on this game a lot.
Yeah, Cincinnati's definitely going to come out trying to prove something this week after completely like tripping out of the gates last week.
You can't be a Super Bowl team. They realized with not extending T. Higgins, they're like, this is our year. You can't go 0-2 in the division to start the season. You just can't.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to another interdivisional game between two teams that looked interesting for different reasons last week. The Houston Texans are 1-point favorites at home against the Colts. A Colts road win would be plus 100 on the money line, and the point total is 39.5. Waleed.
I have nothing on this game. I have no interest in this game. Take it away, Brandon.
So I have interest in this game just because as a sadist, I want to see what both these quarterbacks do, seeing as the Chicago Bears passed on them for a right tackle and DJ Moore now. And it's going to depend heavily on Anthony Richardson's health where I want to go with any betting here. If I'm feeling confident that he's going to run at 50 plus yards at plus 134, I think Houston, DeMeco Ryans, they're gonna blitz him. Blitzing him, that's going to open up some opportunities that if he gets loose, there's going to be a lot of opening middle of the field for him to run. I think it really is only going to take 2 or 3 big scramble plays on his end to get to that point. I'm not saying we're going to see Justin Fields kind of running numbers, but I'm not saying that either. I think the Texans are an aggressive team, but they're not particularly talented. It should give opportunities in the running game. The other thing I'd watch for is Dameon Pierce alt rushing yards, minus 114 to get at least 60. I know that the Texans are running kind of a backfield by committee, but the other guys in that backfield are Devin Singletary and Mike Boone, who have proven to be complete and total ass in their entirety of their careers. Pierce has at least shown some base level competency if he's not fumbling the ball. So I do think that the Texans run the ball quite a bit because their wide receiver room is absolutely garbage. You can't make me believe otherwise. And so I think Pierce gets at least 60 rushing yards this week. Also a sneaky DFS play.
Okay, yep. He's cheap too. For this game, for me, actually, I was a little bit more interested in betting this before it came out that Stroud's shoulder was hurt and he was limited in practice yesterday. If Stroud plays, this game becomes much more interesting to me as a dynasty fantasy player. I want to see where these guys are at. There's a lot of interesting players in this game. And if Stroud is confirmed in, I'm interested in Nico Collins' receiving line at 49.5. Anyone that listens to the podcast knows that we're all high on Christian Kirk. And last week, on this show, I bet on Calvin Ridley's receiving yards prop. And it wasn't because I think Ridley is the best receiver ever. It's because Indy's outside cornerbacks are absolute fucking garbage. Absolute garbage. And Nico Collins with a 26% target share, 64% team air yards share. 50 yards is reasonable for Nico Collins to put up against this bad secondary. But with Davis Mills in there, I'm not so sure. Remember, this Indy defense is why you love Calvin Ridley this week, but it's also the reason why you love Zay Jones this week. So keep that in mind when we're talking about Nico Collins, because I'm going to tell you what, give me Nico Collins over Zay Jones in terms of NFL wide receiver 8 days a week. Okay. So if Stroud's in, you could talk me into a Nico Collins line, but right now I'm not touching it. So let's go to a game that I'm sure will get us, we'll have some nice discourse here. We got the Chiefs going to Jacksonville. Kansas City, 3.5-point road favorites. A Jags home win is plus 154, and the point total is a robust 51.5. Brandon, take it away.
So it's my yearly time to remind everyone that I once pissed in a urinal next to Shad Khan, owner of the
Nice.
Jaguars. His mustache is fucking fantastic in real life. I just got to tell you guys,
That's
it
awesome.
is just as glorious as you think it is. I'm going to throw my first parlay out. I really like a two-leg parlay of Travis Kelce and Evan Engram both scoring touchdowns on Sunday. You're getting plus 500 on that bet. Or yeah, you get plus 500 on that bet. Plus 503. Uh, I think we saw last week pretty decisively that without Travis Kelsey in that lineup, uh, Chiefs offense just does not. It doesn't. It's like it's a gear that's missing a tooth. It's not hitting on all. It's not. It's just not hitting right without him. You can put anybody in that position, and Pat Mahomes is going to throw to him, but nobody runs the routes like Kelsey does. Nobody has that chemistry. I think Kelsey has a huge game. Beyond that parlay, I'd bet him over on yards. If you can get something on him getting 7 receptions, I would go. I like him in the 7 reception area this week. On the other side of it, though, how big of an impact is Chris Jones going to have 1 week in? I know he knows the defense. They haven't changed anything, but he has been sitting out for a while now. He's not going to be playing every down. He is going to be transitioning in and out of that lineup. I think there are going to be a lot of opportunities for the Jaguars to move the ball downfield. Zay Jones, as you mentioned, just throwing it out there, plus 210 to score a touchdown. Might be something to think about there. I think there's a lot opportunities on this game if you want to just sprinkle around a lot of offensive overs. We talk about burners. I really think this could also. We might just see a very high scoring week 2 after watching a lot of tentative offense in week 1. This might be the week we see a lot of teams break out. This could be the third game where you might want to bet the under or over total points above 58.
Well, I mean, this year's week 1, they scored like 50% of the touchdowns of 2022 week 1. It was definitely a very low scoring week 1.
Defense is back, baby.
Well, we'll see. There was also bad weather was back. That was a lot of games were suffered because of weather. I'm with you on Travis Kelce. My problem with the reception line for Travis Kelce at over 6.5 is it's minus 150, and I'm just not taking it.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's plus 118 at under 6.5, which says a lot to me. I'm not touching that. The other bet that I kind of like in this game here, Travis Etienne rushing over at 16.5, I feel might be a very strong play. Etienne, he looked good week 1.
Sure did. What else you got?
The over's a little bit too high for me to like make a play in anyway, because I don't like taking overs when it's over 50 points. I feel like I'm just at that point I'm just rolling the dice.
Baby.
That's fair. I have plenty of stuff here.
Yeah.
If I'm
I don't know if I did clear, but the Travis Kelce 79.5 receiving over, I 100% agree, and I also agree with you. Offenses that are missing one of the best players in football don't look as good. Brandon, yeah, that's the thing that will happen.
Hot take, yeah.
All right, so if I'm betting anytime TDs this week, I like Calvin Ridley a lot. He had 50% of all Jacksonville end zone targets last week. I think they want to just give him the ball and let him make a play. Okay, so I'm just going to preface this by saying I have a few college degrees, so I'm a pretty smart guy. I need to put that into the universe before I talk about my same game parlay here. So my same game parlay is a 3-legger, and it's Travis Etienne over 17.5 receiving yards. Last week, for a guy that we all talked about them not including in the passing game, he was first among all running backs last week in route involvement. He ran a route on 86% of Jacksonville's dropbacks.
And he should have been. Like, that's the thing that was something that was driving us nuts last year, is Etienne should be getting receiving looks.
Right. And so I took the under on Patrick Mahomes' passing yards at 301.5. That's a lot of passing yards.
Yes, it is.
I think if this game last year when these two teams met, we were all like shootout. And then in the playoffs last year when these two teams met, it was shootout. And neither of those games hit their overs. So I'm going with the under on passing yards because I think there's a chance that one of these teams wins 24-17 and it's more of a regular football game instead of a, greatest show on turf madness.
Yep.
And then
Hey,
the part
Deku.
that, what's that?
I said, hi, Deku.
Right. So the last part is I'm embracing the chaos here, and I'm throwing down a Kadarius Toney anytime touchdown in this same game parlay. Now that I've lost your respect, let me explain.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I got a lot of degrees. I'm betting on Kadarius Toney. Are these community college degrees?
I was
They're
throwing out a
honorary degrees,
JUCO, and even I
actually.
know better than to make that bet.
I got my master's degree from the School of Hard Knocks. So,
Oh, he knows how to bite kneecaps.
Look, the thing about Kadarius Toney and Rashee Rice, for that extent, they were each targeted on half of their routes. All right.
Yeah.
And you see a guy like Toney that is a legitimate NFL wide receiver, though inconsistent. His hands are inconsistent, his injury history is inconsistent. But when they get inside the 10, Kadarius Toney is just as much of a threat that in the chaos. And I also believe that they recognize, since they have no actual legitimate wide receivers, it's good for them to make sure that Toney is an asset that they can use throughout this season. So they're going to get him the ball back. They're going to try to get him in rhythm. This is a total gut play, but that's my 3-leg parlay. And the anytime touchdown really boosted it up. So I'm getting plus 15-28 on that 3-leg parlay.
Darius Toney's catching ability makes Velus Jones look like Tim Brown. Like, to say I'm not a believer is an understatement. I saw enough of that game on Thursday night, and unless you're running bubble screens to Kadarius Toney, I wouldn't trust that guy more than 5 yards downfield with the ball going in his direction.
I totally get it, but it only takes one bubble screen inside the 10 to hit, Yeah.
I will say, because you brought up Rashee Rice looks really interesting. I think he's a guy that you should, if you don't have him flagged in your fantasy football leagues, DFS, he's the guy second half of the season. He could end up being a really strong play. I mean, drafted in the second round this year, like those guys, and honestly, he already didn't. What was it like? There was some set. He's already got like 25% of Sky Moore's 2022 production in one game.
I'm not a stats guy, Waleed, but can you tell me the last time that somebody not with the last name Hill did anything reliably, production wise, in the Kansas City Chiefs uniforam?
He used to reliably ruin some fantasy teams for me last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was Travis. It's Travis Kelce and everyone else. It has been, but I think Rashee Rice, at least he showed some flashes for his first game as a rookie. He showed stuff that at least makes me think, okay, this guy could develop.
Sky Moore me once, shame on me.
Darius told me twice.
Shame on me again, even more shame. So I'm willing to be crazy here. The Toney line, I said on the pod, I'm like, look, next week I'm betting on a Kadarius Toney touchdown. Here we are, and a fool.
Toney is a man of integrity.
Easily separate. I wouldn't say that. I'm a man of something. But all right, let's move on. We are in the afternoon slate of games now. We are going to LA, where the 49ers will be playing at home against the Rams because SoFi Stadium provides no home field advantage.
No.
The 49ers are 7-point favorites. A Rams home upset is plus 250 on the money line, and the line is 44.5. Brandon, what do you got?
Every year in week one, we see a couple teams that pop up and oh, this could be their year. They're going to overcome so much adversity. This week one, this is indicative of them. This is going to be a total turnaround year. They're going to surprise everybody. And then they turn back into pumpkins almost immediately. That's the Rams. I actually see Matt Stafford as if they can figure out how to finesse around his dead cap space next year, I see Stafford as the guy who's probably going to end up as a Jet before this is all said and done. Yeah. And I think that involves the Rams losing about 4 straight games here coming up, and I think this is game 1 of that 4 straight. So I like a lot of the San Francisco offensive stuff, specifically Christian McCaffrey, over 100 rushing yards, plus 235. I know he's an all-purpose yardage guy, but I have a lot of bets on McCaffrey in some season-ending awards, Offensive Player of the Year, MVP, stuff like that, some parlay stuff like that. I'm a huge McCaffrey believer in this offense this year. I think that this is going to be a perfect opportunity for him to really going early in the season. He had 150 all-purpose yards last week. I think he's going to go over 100 rushing yards. Could very well go over 70 receiving yards if you want to put those two together. I am going to bang hard on the plus 100 rushing yards, though, because like I said, to say I'm not a believer in the Rams this year would be an understatement. I think they're going to trade anything that isn't bolted down before it's all said and done. If they can move Aaron Donald, I wouldn't be shocked if they move Aaron Donald. That win last week was a bit of a mirage. They're one of the teams, along with the Buccaneers and the Commanders, who I really think week one who are not going to win much here on out.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll before I go to you, Waleed, I have no bets in this game, but I'm really enjoying the mental image of Aaron Rodgers sitting in the cuck chair while Matthew Stafford brings the Jets to the promised land.
Yes. Oh, we all are. So I want to point out, you were talking about you like 100 yards. A nice line. Christian McCaffrey, the rushing and receiving total is 102.5. I think that's a nice over to take. That's pretty safe. And it's a nice hedge because I think he is going to get over 100 yards. I don't know how they're going to get distributed, but that's what Christian McCaffrey does. 69.5 over rushing. That's a nice over. 29.5 receiving. Also a nice over. Honestly, I like Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to be honest, I was going to say, George Kittle was at the top. 38.5 for George Kittle. I was eyeing that over. I'm not going to end up taking it because one of the big problems I had, I'm going to take Kittle in a couple of my DFS lineups, but I don't trust picking one receiver on this team if it's not McCaffrey, because I think between Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle, I think all those guys are going to have really good weeks. Like Ayuk had a great week last week. This week it could be a Debo week. It could be a Kittle week. I don't want to go to the trouble of trying to figure out who it's going to be.
McCaffrey is plus 450 to get 60 receiving yards, and honestly, that line right there has a lot of blood flowing below my waist. That excites me quite a bit. So I might be sprinkling a lot of bets on McCaffrey this week.
I'm going to be honest. I do have a 50% profit boost for this time slate. I haven't figured out, and I'm thinking of just doing a single player game. The over 29.5 for receiving, the over for 69.5 rushing for McCaffrey, and then just a McCaffrey rushing anytime touchdown. I feel like that's a nice, plus 261 with the profit boost, plus 392 for just saying Christian McCaffrey's going to be awesome. I feel like that's a nice safe bet.
I also want to say Deku's also roasting me in the chat for my Kadarius Toney love, but that's okay.
Oh yeah.
Get your shots in now. The victory lap, I'm going to the Olympic size track for this victory lap.
As well you should.
So yeah, I got nothing else in this game except for, like I said, Matthew Stafford putting Rodgers in the cuck chair, which would be just so fucking funny.
And you're getting plus 220 on that.
And as you recall, I want to get the odds on my Thursday night farce ball hot take, which is that Aaron Rodgers returns in season this year because of the medical advice of Dr. Joe Rogan.
Okay, so as a complete, last Sunday night I went to a bar to watch Sunday Night Football, and I went there with a buddy and another guy we knew was at the bar. And as the night went on, we were having some shots, and it devolved very quickly to the point where I got screamed at. And I looked at via text message. I saw how long I got screamed at for 54 consecutive minutes on Sunday night because I don't listen to Joe Rogan's podcast.
That sounds about right.
You can take your own assumptions on what this guy feels about a lot of things, but yeah. No, how can you not listen to it? Oh, what? You're afraid of the truth? Screaming right here. And I'm just like, I'm not, I know this guy, he's buying me, he's bought me shots. I am not going to punch him, but I want to punch him.
The opposite of if you give a mouse a cookie, if you give a Rogan fan an in,
Yeah.
Did you guys see that? Did you guys see that that study that came out that said one of the biggest things that causes women to be unattracted to men is them listening to the Joe Rogan podcast?
That checks out. That checks out.
I'll take that win.
is
I'll take
real,
that
man.
win.
Yeah.
I just heard that I just became more attractive to women.
And so proud of you. We are. So let's move on to a game that is absolutely not attractive to women. We've got the Giants going to the Cardinals. The Cardinals are 4.5-point home underdogs to Daboll's team, who I'm sure are pretty pissed. A Giants road victory would be minus 190, so a Cardinals home win is plus 160. The point total is 39.5. Actually, I'm going to start. Fuck you guys. One of my top 5 bets of the week this week is Daniel Jones going over 37.5 rushing yards.
Yeah. You also have another top 5 better to week, Candace.
So something that I learned because I decided to punish myself and watch the Commanders-Cardinals game from last week. Arizona's pass rush, they got some fucking guys.
Yeah.
And the Giants' offensive line, they don't got some fucking guys. All right? Keep in mind that Daniel Jones rushed 13 times last week and got 43 yards. I think this line is mispriced at 37.5. I think Jones rushing is a big part of what makes them successful, and I think Daboll's going to lean on that, and that's why that's one of my plays of the week. Waleed, what do you got?
Oh, I had clicked the wrong game. This game, I don't want anything of this. The one thing I was kind of looking at, the under at 39.5, kind of still feels like a safe play. I don't believe any of these teams can score, but at the same time, I don't know. Part of me wonders how much of that Giants loss was how good the Dallas Cowboys defense is going to be. I'm a Dallas Cowboys defense truther. I've been saying all offseason they're going to be the best defense in football. And week 1, they showed out. They're the reason my week 1 was profitable when it came to betting. So
shit. Oh, so I'm going to tell you this right now. This has nothing to do with the show. I just want to put this on tape so we can call back to it later for the victory lap.
Yeah.
Having watched that game, we can make fun of Jonathan Gannon as much as we want for being an awkward dork. And that's totally valid.
Yeah.
But I watched that game, and that offense is doing some real interesting stuff. It's a real interesting scheme that they're running, and I think it's going to be good when they can get Kyler back and maybe some semblance of a wide receiver too.
It's like putting a go-kart engine in a Lamborghini, basically.
Essentially.
I will say there are 2 bets that did have my eye though. The James Conner rushing over 57.5 and the Saquon Barkley at 70.5 rushing overs, I think are both interesting plays. I'm just not going to bet this game because I don't want to bet this game. But I think those are bets that looked really interesting to me.
That's fair. What do you got, Brandon?
Much like a Joe Rogan fan on Tinder, this game is not going to get a lot of scoring happening. I really am staring at the alternate total points of 16.5 at plus 3,000. Just $5 to win 150 right there. Might go for it. I don't want to watch this game. I want nothing to do with this game. This game feels like gonorrhea to me. I want it as far away from me as humanly possible. And I don't think either team's going to score at all. It could come back and shock me. Daniel Jones could rush for 90 yards for all I know. But I'm going to hedge and say that not a lot's happening in this game. And it's really not, unless you really are a massive fan of these teams and you don't have any sort of NFL package, you can watch it. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend looking directly at it.
Yeah, go pumpkin picking or something.
It's like an eclipse. If you don't look directly at it, nothing good you'll just hurt your eyes.
That's the only game you can watch. I'd recommend this be the weekend that you go and do something with your significant other.
There you go. Let's do another New York road team with a point total under 40. We have the Jets going to Dallas. Dallas are 8.5-point home favorites. A Jets upset would be plus 330, and the total is 38.5. Brandon, what do you got?
So, Waleed, you mentioned it, and I'm also on the boat that going into the season, the Cowboys defense seemed like a pretty easy bet to be a top 2 defense in the league, and they
Yeah.
showed up and they showed out last week. Now they're going up against Zach Wilson,
Yeah.
who he can read a defense like basically the same way I read calories on the back of boxes, and that's to say I don't, or at least according to my doctors, I don't do it well enough. Um, so I don't think anything's going to happen there. I'm pulling up real quick. I want to see what the anytime touchdown score on Cowboys defense is.
Plus 370. I was already pulling it up because that's like the only bet in this game I have any interest in. Plus 370 Dallas defensive touchdown. Honestly, I'm also kind of looking at that. I do. Plus 3,700 for 2 Dallas defensive touchdowns. I will throw $1 on that for $37 because I think
maybe a garbage time Deuce Vaughn touchdown at plus 440.
Yeah.
I think this game has a chance to get ugly and out of hand early again, just like last week. I think Dallas is going to go 2-0 against the New York teams, and I put on FanDuel. They had the bet: you put $50 on a team, you get $5, or to win the Super Bowl, you get $5 every time they win. Dallas was the team I put $50 on this year. I'm feeling pretty good about that free $5 bet. I'm going to waste on a home run parlay on Monday.
Okay. I will say this: the 38.5, the under on this for Dallas for this game, I like it because I just don't think the Jets are going to score.
Okay. I gotta say, I have almost never heard announcers talk about a starting NFL quarterback the way they talked about Zach Wilson last week.
Yeah.
The Manning cast?
The Manning, like, it was physically, they were repulsed by what they saw. And so I have one of my top 5 bets of the week in this game, and that's the under for Garrett Wilson at 50.5 receiving yards.
Yeah.
So I looked up his splits. First off, Dallas only allowed 41 yards receiving to all of the Giants receivers combined. And that was when they were up by double figures. So if we're talking like garbage time, still not getting any production, says a lot to me. Garrett Wilson in his games with Zach Wilson has averages 49 yards a game. None of those games had him going up against Trayvon Diggs. So
listen, I know it was Aaron Rodgers that hurt his Achilles, but I think it's actually Garrett Wilson that was in the most pain last week.
I agree.
Yeah.
So my play is on the under.
For Garrett Wilson.
Wilson. So, all right, let's move on to another one that is probably best read about later and not watched. You got Washington going to Denver. Denver are 3.5-point home favorites. Commanders upsets plus 156, and the line is 38.5. Brandon, what do you got?
I don't care about this game, so I'll throw $1 on $1 or $2 on Jerry Jeudy to score 3 touchdowns at plus 13,000 odds, and just not watch the game. And if I wake up with a couple hundred extra dollars in my account, then hey, good for me. There's not a lot that interests me in this game. I'm really frustrated. This is about year 4 of my frustration with Washington's running back committee. I still think for the every year in a row, Antonio Gibson is the best running back in that running back room, but does not get the production of value, or he doesn't get the production opportunities.
Because he keeps fumbling.
But Adrian Peterson fumbled a lot too. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, but he ain't Adrian Peterson.
I'm not saying he is Adrian Peterson, but if you give Antonio Gibson a full slate of opportunities over the course of a season, he is going to give you, 1,200 rushing yards, 700 receiving yards. He could be a 2,000-yard all-purpose guy, given the right opportunities with the right team. These are not the right opportunities. This is not the right team. So Washington very much frustrates me in that sense. I don't think Brian Robinson is that good of a running back. I didn't think he was a very good running back, gunshot wound notwithstanding last year. I definitely still don't believe in him very much this year.
He looked a lot better. He looked a lot better in week 1, I thought. I think
he's a very plodding back by comparison.
He needs volume.
He's a volume guy. And actually, that over 55.5 isn't a bad line because they are going to feed him volume. But the problem is, I don't know that I like that line against the Denver Broncos defense because their defensive line is still pretty damn good.
Can we also highlight the fact that, this bounce back year from Denver did not make an appearance in week 1.
No, it did not.
Losing to the Raiders is embarrassing.
Yeah, it is.
The only play that I'm interested in, I haven't bet it yet. I'm considering it. It's something I'm kicking around in my head. Is Javonte Williams is rushing under at 48.5.
Yeah.
Look, he had 52 rushes on 13 carries last week. Samaje Perine had eight carries as well.
Yeah.
Williams
It's gonna be a committee.
He only had 2 more snaps on offense. Williams did over Perine, and the Commanders' rush defense was insane last week, and Chase Young is back.
I would also like to point out, and I think it's very important that we note this. Do you remember how you guys all made fun of me for saying that Perine is a great cheap buy for the Broncos because he's going to be in a committee, and you all treated me like I was some crazy dumb idiot. Don't get me wrong, Perine didn't do enough to actually make him worthwhile, but at the same time, for a flyer, he's going to get volume.
We made fun of you because you used the words great and Samaje Perine in the same sentence.
Great value. You can't lose the word value. Like, I didn't say Perine was great.
I make fun of you because your hair makes you look like a fancy dog.
I am a fancy dog. I got that fancy dog in me.
I get sad Krusty vibes actually, like when he's in like the rain, like he's probably talking to his dad. You know.
I am also sad. I do get that sad Krusty vibe.
One last number I wanted to throw out there about the Javonte under. Washington last week, their defensive line's average depth of tackle was minus 0.7 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Ooh.
That's fucking nasty.
That's disgusting.
So, all right, let's move on.
Finally a game I care about.
Yeah, it's real weird that this is I would argue, the best game of the late window here.
Well, it's the Sunday night game.
No, this is still the late window. Sunday night is New Orleans, Carolina.
Well,
there's 2 Monday night games.
There's 2 Monday night games.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some unknown reason. There's 2 Monday night.
Been waiting all day for Sunday night. Miami going to New England. Miami 2.5 point road favorites. A Patriots home win would be plus 130 on the money line, and the point total is 46.5. Waleed, take it away.
So I'm taking away is Tony and I both have the same top 5 bet of the week. This is the only bet I actually really care about in this game, and that is Ramondre Stevenson over 23.5 receiving yards. That number's way too fucking low. Mm-hmm. That is so low. Let me here's what I say. Dolphins gave up the 6th most receiving yards to running backs last week, is what I want to point out. But also, like, Ramondre, what was his? I did not write it down, but Ramondre's receiving yards in week 1, he had like
I got it, baby. He went 6 of 6 for 64 yards.
Yeah. They're gonna, this is a game you can throw to running backs against the Dolphins. Like that is a weakness on their team, and Bill Belichick is going to hammer that. I think Ramondre's receiving over is. I think he might get that on 2 catches. So I love that. I'm also kind of eyeing the over 3.5 receptions at minus 102 with Ramondre, because I think that's a really interesting play. Also, I'll be honest, I will keep smashing Tyreek receiving overs all season, every week. I don't really give a shit about matchup or anything, because I think he's going to hit it. They're going to keep chucking it to him, and he's going to keep catching him, because he might be the best receiver in football.
All right. Brandon, what you got?
I have very few hard and fast rules in life. One is you never take a food recommendation from a vegan, and another is that you never bet on a New England running back. You know it just lives to hurt you. You've said this, you've put it in the universe, which means Ramondre Stevenson is not even going to play on Sunday. He'll be returning punts, or he'll be on the line during field goal.
I'm going to be honest with you, Brandon. I did have that thought. I was like, but then I thought, like, I can't, like, what? They're just going to keep throwing it to Ezekiel Elliott? I don't see that happening.
Yes, I absolutely see them doing that. It's Bill Belichick. He's outlived his fullness, but still thinks he's the most clever person in the room. It's Bill O'Brien who just caters to the whim of Belichick. I don't know if you guys saw the report that came out the other day that Belichick won't retire because he wants to break Don Shula's all-time wins record because Don Shula talked shit about them when they couldn't go undefeated 15 years ago. He won't retire. That is insane. The level of petty is spectacular on that one.
I approve of that. Honestly, fuck those Dolphins. Like, I hate the Dolphins.
You can fuck Mercury Morris with a trident for all I care. I hate those teams. That smugness of that boat party they have every time the last undefeated. Screw them. Those octogenarian assholes.
They're not. Undefeated. They're not even top 5 all-time teams. So
the flukiest season ever. What I do enjoy though is my lack of belief in this New England team. I love. This is a bet that I'm probably going to go in real money very heavy on. Miami minus 8.5 on an alternate spread plus 240. Mac Jones threw for nearly 300 yards last week. Does anybody really think he's going to do that again? It is still Mac Jones. He is still the guy who got benched for Bailey Zappi last year. Just because he's in a slightly different offense run by a guy who actually knows how to run an offense doesn't change the fact that Juju Smith-Schuster, who was their big offseason acquisition at wide receiver, is number 5 on the depth chart because his knee never recovered. He's still throwing to a very depleted wide receiving core. Forgive me, but is Mike Gesicki the best tight end on that roster?
This is Hunter Henry erasure.
I remember the Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith spending spree. That really showed out. Either way, this is more personal than anything else. I viscerally hate Boston sports fans. I think they are just the absolute worst. Their sense of entitlement is so insane that it almost lacks precedent. It's like New York sports fans, but without the earned reputation. I am going to bet heavily on the Dolphins. You mentioned Tyreek over on yards. Definitely going to bet that as well. I think before the season started, Tyreek Hill said he wanted to be the guy that broke the single season receiving yards record, not Justin Jefferson. And I think he's going to be on a mission to do that. I think with the health.
He's on pace to do it halfway through the season right now.
A healthy Tua is going to give him every opportunity in the world to do that. I genuinely don't believe there is a defense, save maybe the Cowboys, that can really slow this Dolphins offense down. The coach is it Mike McDaniel? I forget his first name.
It's Mike McDaniel.
What he's doing out there is just brilliant. He schemes guys that everybody in the stadium knows need to be covered. He schemes them open. And
he's so fun.
That when they are on and they are healthy, you can't beat that. I know it's 1 week, it's a small sample size, but watching that, and I think there's a lot of sustainable stuff that Miami's doing. Again, the caveat being based on health. I think there's a lot of stuff Miami's doing right now that is repeatable and is going to be hard to defend against. I like the over on Miami total yards. I like Tyreek's over. I like, I don't know what Miami's points are, what the over-under is in that. I love the over for that as well.
2.5. Individual team.
New England has a good defense, but New England doesn't have a good enough defense to stop this.
Yeah, so Dolphins total points is 24.5 at plus 104.
Yeah, I love that bet.
Yeah, I'll take that. I think that's a decent bet. Honestly, I also like Tua's passing over at 268.5. Look, like you say there's only a 1-game sample size. I disagree. I say if you look at 2022, we would be talking about Tua Tagovailoa in the same breath as Jalen Hurts if he had stayed healthy all season. Like, he was destroying teams the first few weeks of the season before he actually got hurt. I mean, I think there's enough of a sample size to, just believe that offense is going to be one of the best offenses in football as long as Tua stays healthy, which is a big if. But while Tua is non-concussed, I will throw all the money on Miami Dolphins scoring.
Okay. I just threw in a little fun one here. I did Ramondre over 23.5 receiving, Tyreek Hill over 80.5 receiving, and Miami's minus 2.5. So that was just
that's a solid parlay. If I get a promo for the Sunday night game, I'm gonna probably jump on you with that. because I think that's a good one.
Something I think that really speaks to the viability of Patriots backfield pass catchers is that their left tackle's been out in concussion protocol. Both of their guards are limited with injuries, and their center has been limited all week this week as well. So 4 of their 5 offensive linemen have not been practicing. So fun stuff.
You might want to make that 7.5 after that parlay at that point, because I think the Dolphins are going to win by double digits, if I'm being honest.
So let's move on. We're going to our first Monday night game. We have the Saints going to Carolina. The Carolina are 3-point home underdogs. A home win would be plus 136 on the money line, and the point total is 40. Waleed, anything?
I don't like straight lines that don't have a 0.5, but I still kind of like that Carolina under. I see the lines moving up a little bit because people are probably smashing that under, and they're trying. Oh no! If it went up, then that means they're smashing the over. But I don't think this over is going to hit. I don't know. I just don't. I don't know that I like this game too much, but I will say this: I will always. Oh, actually, I don't know. 74.5 for Chris Olave is still kind of high, and especially considering how good Brian Burns looked in Week 1.
He did. He looked real good.
Yeah, I don't know that I really want to get any action on this game. If I did anything, it would probably be the under, because I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think Carolina's going to take a while to put things together. They struggled hard in Week 1 against Atlanta, and I'll be honest, I don't know that I think Atlanta's defense is actually that good, but I think the Saints' defense is that good.
Okay.
So,
all right, Brandon, what do you got? Oh no, we're losing your audio.
I think we lost your audio for a second. You there, Brandon?
Nope.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
Right, while he's trying. Hey, there we go.
Okay. Sorry about that. You got me cool. So I was hoping that FanDuel would allow me to do under-over 0.5 pass attempts by Andy Dalton this week. Because I genuinely have concerns that Bryce Young, he's going to get hit, and at some point here in the very near future, he's going to get hit and not be able to finish a game, or he's going to have to get pulled out of a game for get checked for a concussion or something. He didn't look as shifty as I thought he might be. He very much just looks like an undersized pocket passer. And there were multiple times, I think at least one of his interceptions last week, it very much looked like that interception was due to the fact that he could not see over the offensive line and the defensive line. And he literally threw it to the opposing team because his wide receiver had cut off his route and he couldn't see it happening. So if in lieu of betting that, Juwan Johnson had a really good connection with Derek Carr in training camp. I'm not nuts with it, but Juwan Johnson, 40 or more receiving yards at plus 162. I do like that bet. I don't think this is a super high scoring game, but I think this feels like one of those games where it's like 10-6 going into the fourth quarter, and then the Saints put on 2 touchdowns in the fourth to really put it out of range. Yeah. So if you're, maybe in-game betting as the night goes on, if the game stays tight, I would in-game bet maybe a late, whatever touchdowns available, like pick the next player to score a touchdown deeper in the game. I'd definitely look into that. But like from the outset, I see, like you mentioned, Brian, I don't think anyone was really concerned with Carolina's defense going in, even though J.C. Horn was put on injured reserve this week, where he is going to live perpetually, I would assume. I still think that the Panthers have a good defense. I think the Saints have a good defense. I wasn't a Bryce Young guy coming into the draft, and I've really never been a big Derek Carr guy. I think he's a numbers accumulator rather than a great passer. I could, like I said, I could very well see this being a very low scoring game going deep into the game before the Saints pull away.
Okay. I know that there is a potential with Derek Carr being one of the best deep, most frequent deep passers in the league. This being good for the opportunities for some of these wide receivers, but I can't say that in any confidence.
Yeah, well, I mean, in week 1, Derek Carr had the most downfield pass attempts of 20 plus yards of anyone. But the problem with that was he was playing the Titans, and the Titans secondary is trash.
And also, I mean, I watched Brian Burns completely destroy the Atlanta passing attack last week.
Yep.
So,
I think we could see more of the same this week.
all right. So let's go to our second Monday Night Football game and our last game to preview of the week. We've got Cleveland going to Pittsburgh. Cleveland are 2.5-point road favorites. A Pittsburgh home win is plus 116 on the money line, and the point total is 38.5. Waleed.
So I'm not really betting this game. There's only a couple of bets that I actually really like. I will say I still kind of like the under here. Pittsburgh. I mean, I don't know if I think it's a combination of Pittsburgh isn't that good, but also like the 49ers defense was that good. But I think the Cleveland Browns defense also looked like they were really freaking good in week 1. And I don't think it's going to get any easier, which is also why I kind of like Kenny Pickett's passing line at 205.5. That seems really high. I don't know that he's going to get that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but the one bet that I actually feel good about, regardless of any situation, Nick Chubb over 83.5 rushing yards feels like it could be a smash. But having said that, I don't know that I'm going to bet this game. It depends how I do on my Sunday slate, but I don't feel strong enough to like roll any money over if I have a bad like Sunday. If I have a good Sunday, I might throw some money on that on those 3 outcomes because I don't think Pittsburgh's going to score 10 points.
We don't have receiving lines up, do we yet?
We don't.
I'm not showing touchdowns either.
There's some touchdowns.
I'm getting the little lock sign on next to all mine. Either way, though, that's not what I'm betting.
What's a touchdown you'd be looking for? I can tell you the odds. It's on the screen, too.
The only bet I'm really looking at it for this game is the money line total points double. And they have Cleveland Browns to win and the under at 40.5 points at plus 190. I like that bet. Cleveland does have they both have very good defenses. Like TJ Watt last week looked like he could be the best defensive player in the NFL. And the Browns defense looked great. I don't think there's going to be a ton of points scored, but I do think Cleveland wins, which will be interesting because if Cleveland wins on Monday night, it'll be the first regular season game they'll have won in Pittsburgh since 2003.
Ooh. I don't know. Like that almost makes me think that Pittsburgh might come back and that week 1 could have been a fluke. Because I like Pittsburgh's defense looked really bad in week 1 overall, I thought. And and it makes me kind of wonder, but at the same time, like that could have just been a week 1 thing. Because I think Cleveland's gonna be an inconsistent team, even though they did look really good in week 1. It was also bad weather game, so I don't know how much that influenced things.
Also true.
Yeah.
They don't have receiving lines up, but I'm really interested in looking at the under for George Pickens, being that his play style is a lot like T. Higgins, who was shut down last week by Cleveland's Minnie Ramsey, new cornerback. I think Cleveland has a great pass rush and they've got great defensive backs. And so they had a top 5 pass rush grade last week, and then last week when Pickett was marked as under pressure, George Pickens had less targets than both Allen Robinson and Jalen Warren. He had 3 targets, caught 2 for 18 yards. So if George Pickens' receiving yard line is anywhere around 40, I'm taking the under.
Okay.
But that's all I got. I'm not putting any money on it until I see how Sunday goes.
And I think that's all we got for the sports back. Let's get on to the DFS right now. And then we're gonna wrap this up. So what are your I guess we want to go through our favorite quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end plays of the week.
Yeah, we're each going to go with our plays of the week. Well, let's all do our quarterbacks first. Brandon, you want to start?
Yeah, we mentioned it was the first game that we mentioned as a potential shootout this week. I'm riding Jared Goff this week as my DFS quarterback.
Oh, that was going to be my number 1 guy, but I will pivot a little bit. You know what? I'm going to go first. If you're looking to go cheap on quarterback, I'm going to throw, because I have a couple of lineups out here. I'm doing a Baker Mayfield quarterback. That's a way to go cheap on quarterback against what looked like an awful defense, was one of the worst defenses in football last year. Like, Baker Mayfield could be a guy that you can get a lot of value at your other positions, and he might put up 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Totally get it. I mean, if he's a top 10 quarterback, you return on value. He does what Jordan Love did last week, right?
Exactly. Like and that's where that's where those millie winners come from a lot of the time.
I have a high salary guy and I also have a pivot. So we're gonna do the high salary guy as my official guy. I'm going
Okay.
with Justin Herbert. I think that Titans defensive
Love it.
backfield is god awful. I think he's gonna have surgical precision, and I think Tennessee's strength is on the defensive line. So if Kelly doesn't boom, it's a Herbert week. If you're doing a super flex or something like that, where you can include some of the later games in there, I don't mind Derek Carr as a dart throw.
Okay.
Brandon, who you got for running back?
I mentioned it earlier. Like I said, I know he's in a backfield committee, but I think he's the only person worth a damn in that backfield committee, and he's only coming off at $6,000 right now. That's Dameon Pierce. I think he's going to get some workload against Indianapolis. I don't think Indianapolis is going to show up too well defensively. Let's face it, these are both two garbage teams, but I think if you're looking for one thing that's going to pop from that game, I think it's going to be Dameon Pierce, and I think he's a decent value play.
Okay, Waleed.
So I'm going to give you two running backs here. One of them's going to be like a more expensive guy. One of them's going to be a value play. The expensive guy, the guy I actually think has a really fun, a potentially fun matchup. Not going to be surprised to anyone. I like Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to get a lot of receiving looks. I think he's going to get a lot of rushing looks. Green Bay was not good against the run last year. They haven't shown too much this year, although the stats are skewed because it was garbage time. And then we're going to double up with another rookie taken in the first round because I think this value is insane. Jahmyr Gibbs, only 5,800 in DFS. And I think that that's a good matchup, too, in a game that we projected to be a nice high-scoring game with Seattle and Detroit. I think those first-round rookie running backs this week are both really strong DFS plays.
Okay. My running back this week is David Montgomery. I think this is a game script game for him. I don't know if he gets 21 carries like he did last week, but I could see him getting between 16 to 19, punching one into the end zone, getting you about 70 yards rushing, which is about what you want for a guy at that price. Brandon, wide receiver, who do you got?
So I got a value play and I've got a top end guy. I think, despite of the fact that he's going up against Sauce Gardner, I do like CeeDee Lamb this week. Stephon Diggs went up against Sauce Gardner on Monday night, and he still got his yards, even if a lot of those yards came later in the game. A little bit of a wear down process. I think CeeDee Lamb is at this point in his career a better receiver than Diggs, and I believe that Dallas is at some point here going to try and establish the pass, even if they have to move Lamb around in the field a little bit to get him away from Gardner. I like CeeDee Lamb's size against Gardner quite a bit. It's going to be a great matchup to watch, but I do really love CeeDee Lamb this week. And as kind of a value play, considering Aaron Jones's injury, considering Christian Watson's injury, Romeo Doubs is a guy at 6,300 who you can definitely look at and slot in, who's going to get a large share of that offense just because they're running out of healthy bodies there even pretty early in the season.
Okay. Waleed, your wide receiver.
So I have a lot of shares, and this isn't going to surprise anyone. I think Jamar Chase is going to ball out. I think he's going to be a top 3 receiver this week. I'm paying up for him. When I pay down for Baker Mayfield, it's so I can get a guy like Jamar Chase. I really want him this week. I think he's going to be a monster. But for a value play, too, I was really looking at DJ Moore because I think, like Brandon mentioned it earlier, I think because of how little he was, used in that in their their week 1 game plan, I think he's going to get peppered with more looks. And Tampa gave up a lot of yards to receivers last week. So DJ Moore could be a nice value play at 6,100.
I am going with the guy that I believe is going to be the wide receiver 1 overall this week. I'm staying in Detroit. I'm going with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I've got his overs everywhere, and even as those overs crept up to the mid-70s, I'm still hammering them because I think he's just going to torch.
I'm right there with you.
All right, Brandon, who's your tight end?
So I'm going with kind of in the same vein as you, looking at the Detroit game. I want a handcuff for Jared Goff. I like Sam Laporta. He had 5 receptions last week. Didn't get a lot in terms of yardage, but if he's going to be the intermediate guy that we thought Jahmyr Gibbs would be, then that's going to show out really well for him. I'm trying to pull up the exact stats right now. But if you look at Jared Goff during his 2 big seasons with the Rams, he did run heavily to the tight ends, Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett. He uses tight ends quite a bit because in his check down process, they're number 2 or 3 often. So if Amon-Ra St. Brown is covered, he's going to look down the middle. He's going to look at Laporta in the flat. Laporta might be a little bit touchdown dependent this week. I'm not sure he actually is, though. Like I said, I think he's going to start absorbing some of the receptions that people thought Gibbs was going to get. So I'm going to ride Sam Laporta as tight end this week.
Okay, before Waleed gives his, Deku asked thoughts on Kenneth Walker the third this week. I just want to offer my opinion here. He got a large amount of the rushes last week, but I also think at the same time, Detroit's run defense is real good. They only allowed 45 rushing yards last week, and at the same time, losing both offensive tackles scares me a little bit for Ken Walker.
Well, one thing I will say to jump in on that, I actually have Walker in a couple of lineups, and the reason and they're in my Detroit heavy lineups as a run back option. I think Kenneth Walker might be the guy who sees some point production, and I think it's going to be a high scoring game. So I like having a little bit of running backs from both teams in games that are going to be high scoring because statistically they're the most likely to score touchdowns. So I think he has value. He's a nice price, but there is a little bit of risk with him. But to me, at his price, the upside is there because Kenneth Walker is a guy. It just takes one carry and he'll break it for 60 yards.
It's true. So I'm out. Waleed's in. Brandon, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I was looking at Puerto Rican porn stars on Instagram. What are we up to?
Kenneth Walker. What do you think?
What are your thoughts on him?
I was a big Zach Charbonnet guy when he was coming out of college because
welcome to the club.
The fact that I thought he was going to absorb a lot of receptions. The problem was with Kenneth Walker. Has he really shown that he's super healthy this year? He didn't play much in training camp. Didn't play much in preseason. I genuinely think a lot of people thought that Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be the guy that was going to supplant David Montgomery very quickly. It very well could be that Charbonnet is going to be the guy that's going to supplant Kenneth Walker ahead of that. Walker was great last year, but he was also an accumulator. His efficiency numbers last year were terrible.
Yep.
And so I'm not, for fantasy reasons, Walker still has value as long as they're feeding it to him, like in the same roles, like say a Najee Harris or Brian Robinson. But I think if you are in a half PPR or a PPR or even a DFS that takes receptions into account, you almost have to start looking past Kenneth Walker at this point.
Okay, so we have 2 no's, 1 yes.
Okay, well we'll see in the end. So I'm doing my tight end here, and honestly, the tight end I'm looking at, I like Darren Waller. I know he's a little bit more expensive this week, but Arizona gave up in week 1. They gave up they have given up like the third most or the fourth most receiving yards to tight ends, and last year they were top 3. They were a top 3 matchup with tight ends. So I think that like Darren Waller is probably gonna be the number 1 receiver on that team. He's a lot cheaper than getting yourself a Kelsey or a Mark Andrews, but I mean he's a solid play this week. Paying a little bit up.
My original play was Darren Waller, so I'm going to pivot. The thing about Darren Waller this week is that the Arizona defense made Logan Thomas look competent last week.
Yeah.
So that's not a good sign. So my cost-saving tight end play this week is Luke Musgrave.
Okay. I honestly went with Waller because I assumed you were going Musgrave because I know he's the guy you guys like.
Luke Musgrave got 2 deep targets last week, was open on both. One was missed by Love. The other one he tripped before he could fall into the end zone. And we're looking at a defense that just made Hayden Hurst look dominant.
And I will say this too: if you look at Waller's costs and you want to try to save money, $4,800 Daniel Bellinger with that matchup, not a bad play.
Yeah. So Deku gave us a DFS lineup. Goff, Gibbs, Pierce, Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, Romeo Doubs, George Kittle, Bijan the flex, Cowboys defense. What do you guys think?
I love Cowboys.
I love that. I love that lineup, honestly. You picked a bunch of guys that I'm really high on. I like Dobbs too, especially if Watson doesn't go. He's going to be
It's-
incredible value.
I think, yeah, without Aaron Jones, that opens up way more targets than I think people are really thinking about. Aaron
Yep.
Jones having 4 targets, but also being one of the primary passing game pieces. AJ Dillon doesn't get the same amount of looks, so those targets are going somewhere. I'm banking on them going to Musgrave. I don't think them going to saying that they're going to Dobbs is a bad call. Could go either way.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I'm
honestly, it
not,
could get split down the middle, and those guys both have some nice value. Because I
I'm
kind of
not
think the Packers are going to do really well this week.
I'm not the most bullish on Pierce or Kittle, but Brandon's reasoning for Pierce, I get it. It makes perfect sense to me. They're going to give him, 16 opportunities. So I'm
Kittle
All
not
he needs
against.
to do is break 2 of them.
Yeah,
Kittle,
and go ahead.
Kittle to me is a guy that I'm not necessarily bullish on him, but when Kittle goes off, he goes off hard.
Yeah,
So I don't think he's ever a bad choice, regardless of matchup. Because I don't know that the matchup necessarily the best, but I don't know that matters. Because Kittle's going to get his. There's going to be 4 games where Kittle's going to win you DFS lineups, and you just have to hope you pick the right ones.
I think this is what Deku's built is a real good multi-entry large-scale tournament play, right?
Yep.
Because Dobbs is going to be, I would say, 7% owned. I think Kittle is going to be low ownership. I think most people are going to be playing Kelsey or Waller.
Yeah.
And I think that Pierce and Gibbs are, interesting enough and low owned enough that if they hit, if the question marks in the roster hit, you're great. So unfortunately, my thought is on this team, you're either going to bust or you're going to do very well.
And in tournament play, that's kind of what you want.
Yeah.
Hey, Deku, are you the guy? Because there's one guy that won last week. Oh, by the way, congratulations, Tony. Were you the one that got 3rd place in the
Zach,
DFS
got
tournament?
second, I got 3rd.
Yep. And then the guy who got 1st is someone from our Discord who won't own up to who he is. I'm hoping he's waiting for that reveal till the end.
Yeah. So let's rerun through our DFS faves. Brandon's favorites were Goff, Pierce, CeeDee Lamb with a cheap pivot at Romeo Dobbs, Sam Laporta. Waleed's 4 were Baker Mayfield. You got Jahmyr Gibbs as your pay down option, Bijan as your pay up, Jamar Chase, and then Darren Waller. I went Justin Herbert, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Luke Musgrave. There we go.
All right. And then now we got the Football Absurdity Tournament. And if you guys want to go through your lineups, this is going to be my team that I'm putting up against all you guys. I got Jared Goff at quarterback. I got Jahmyr Gibbs and Kenneth Walker. I got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Godwin, T. Higgins, Travis Kelce, Josh Kelly, and the Detroit Lions. That is my tournament lineup that's going up against you guys. So let's see how you guys are going to beat me.
Brandon?
You're not.
I don't know if I've actually entered it yet, but the lineup that I'm rolling with in most of my leagues is Jared Goff, Bijan Robinson, Damian Pierce, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Romeo Dobbs, Sam Laporta, Devontae Adams out of my flex, and Cowboys defense.
Very nice.
That's a fun one.
I am going on my quarterback is Justin Herbert. My 2 running backs are David Montgomery and Josh Kelly. I'm also throwing in Keenan Allen and Amon-Ra St. Brown, betting pretty heavy on a big Chargers/Lions week this week.
Yeah.
My 3rd receiver is Rashee Rice. I like the routes run. I think he's going to be a cheap touchdown. Darren Waller at tight end, Mike Evans at flex, and Tampa Bay's defense.
Okay. These are some good lineups. I gotta get that from you.
Every lineup till Sunday at 2:15.
Yep. Until 12:15.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. So that's all I've got. Brandon, thanks for joining us, man. Tell us again about the website.
FancyBoysClub.com. Website started by a bunch of suburban comedians. That's pretty much whittled down to about 3 of us that are just telling dick jokes to each other on the regular basis. But Monday, 10 a.m., I am dropping a piece about the Bears' wide receiver draft history over the past 30 years and the depressing state that it is in. Check it out. If nothing else, you'll see some names that you didn't think you'd see in a long time and be stunned and demoralized by where they rank in terms of all-time Bears history.
If you're not sad enough going to work on a Monday morning, that article will put you over the edge.
I'll get you drinking again. Don't worry.
I'm going to plug my shit real quick. Weekly, I drop the TH Fantasy podcast with Ryan and Shane. It is a weed/football/remember a guy podcast. I am on Twitch for Football Absurdity on Thursday nights for Thursday Night Farceball. We do this every Saturday. I also write the gambling article, The Degenerates Gambit on Football Absurdity. Waleed?
I mean, I'm just Football Absurdity. I don't do anything else anymore. Hey, and thank you guys very much for joining us.
And super producer Josh, thank you. Do you have anything you want to plug?
No, just join me and Waleed Tuesday mornings for the Waiver Wire show, where we try to fix our own lineups and your lineups as well. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Great show, everyone.
All right. And
good luck.